Welcome and come well to... Can I ask a question?
Is that seriously how we're starting this episode?
Yes, but I have an actual question on top of that. Every time I walk into a store, people say, welcome in.
Yes.
When did this start?
Within the last 5 years or
Why
so.
did it start?
I do not know.
It's very upsetting to German speakers because I think they're saying willkommen, which is welcome, but they're actually saying welcome in. Welcome in what?
Here.
Welcome into the store?
Yes.
I'm welcoming you. Why don't I say, I hereby welcome you into the store and good morning also from my side, like the Germans say. Who does this?
I don't know, but yes.
Do you say that? Is this a fucking West Coast thing?
No, I heard it for the first time within the last 5 years.
I've heard it for a long time, like the first year, because I don't go into stores. I'm usually not allowed. The shoplifting charges.
What is this show and what is this episode about?
This is the Carmudgeon Show. My name is Petty Theft McGee.
Jathan Cammisa.
Jathan Cammisa, and that is Derek-tam-scott.
Yes, this episode of the Carmudgeon Show is part of the Haggerty Podcast Network. No, it is about...
It is.
It is part of the Haggerty Podcast Network. And the show is about drag racing.
The quickest production American car in the world.
And the most powerfulest is also...
Most powerful American production car, yes.
Yeah, both of them. The two most powerful.
The two most powerful American cars of all time. Yes. We did some drag racing. The video is also to be found on YouTube. We'll probably put a link below or something like that. I don't know. I can't be bothered. And we talk about all sorts of things from the slowest cars we've ever driven to cars that are better when they're slower. Mm-hmm. Maybe a little bit. We touched on that topic.
Yes.
Yes. Plus the idea of VHT or traction compound and rollout.
Glossary. Drag racing glossary.
I mean, we didn't go. It's sort of mattery.
Those are the two terms.
Rather than glossary, it's a mattery. Anyway, you get to do the whole Haggerty Drivers Club thing because you keep making me do it recently. And
this episode is brought to you by...
Yep.
No, just kidding.
Yep.
If you like this content, you should consider joining the Haggerty Drivers Club, which brings with it unlimited...
Flatbed tows for all of it. Yeah, I'm listening.
I thought you were
I'm very intently listening.
Okay, unlimited flatbed towing, access to our valuation tool.
Unlimited flatbed towing for all of your classic cars.
But not your classic literature. And access to our valuation tool, discounts on various things, and access to tickets and VIP events, and also a fourth item, which is probably...
Which doesn't matter. Cue the music and start your clap. Let's see, Derek-tam-scott, where the world takes us.
It's probably somewhere inappropriate to share.
Well, first things first is going to be Radwood, isn't it?
The world's taking us to Radwood?
The world is taking us to Radwood.
We're taking ourselves to Radwood.
Radwood is taking us to where? What are you driving to Radwood? I seem to have caught Derek
literally
unprepared.
Any car I own. I'm not
saying what could you take to Radwood. I'm saying what
I don't know. Not the GTI, but other than that, I don't know.
The GTI is ineligible.
Last time I took the Citroen, and
I had the Rover. That was last year.
You had the Rover. That was the weird aerodynamic cars, and my wagon was also there. The purple wagon.
Purple wagon.
I don't think I have the R129. There's nothing really interesting that I have that's from that era. They're all just Sacco Mercedes. We're in Porsche, and you don't want to show up in a Porsche because those things are seen everywhere at all times anyway.
Well, it could be. Okay, listen. So for the record, we are both attending Radwood, San Francisco this week.
NorCal.
When are we? I don't know.
It's this Saturday. It is this coming Saturday. It's the next Saturday that will occur, the 20th of
July.
July. Thank you.
In San Francisco, we are apparently doing some sort of A&Q. Which is
will be amazing because we will A before we queue, which is really impressive.
I think that's pretty cool thing. That's Jeopardy rules, isn't it?
Huh. Okay.
Right. So if I say Bruno Sacco, what's the cue?
Who is the greatest car designer of all time?
You're going to put him ahead of Gandini?
No, I'm kidding.
Giugiaro?
I'm kidding. I don't think he actually is.
I think we should do an A&Q.
We got an interesting Giugiaro piece of equipment at my place of work. The Series 1 Esprit, actually.
Esprit,
yeah. It's pretty cool.
Doesn't it just look a lot like a Ferrari 308 GT4?
No, it has much fewer curves.
It's very difficult to do.
But it does it nonetheless, because the sides are flat. In addition to it being straight lines in profile, it's also straight lines from every other angle too. It was my first time driving an unturbocharged Esprit.
Which engine is that?
It is the Lotus twin cam, inline 4.
You're kidding. The Esprit started with that motor?
Yeah.
Because didn't it wind up with a flat plane crank twin turbo V8?
It did, yeah.
Jesus, that's quite the jump. I think it also gained 50% in weight or something, if I remember correctly.
Really? Oh, I didn't know that.
And like 1,000 pounds started out like 2,100.
That wouldn't surprise me that they ended up probably right around 3,000 pounds, because I once did a comparison on paper between the 993 Turbo, the F355, and the Lotus Esprit V8 twin turbo, because they all were available in 96. I think they all three came out for 96 model year. And they were all really the 355 came out in 95.
Yeah. I was fact checking you, and
OBD1,
you saw the look on my face. Yeah, I know there's 1 year of OBD1.
And they all do 0 to 60. They all go like 180 miles an hour, and all do 0 to 60 in like 4.4 seconds or something like that. And they all cost very differently now. And it's actually a couple of Esprit V8s have gone like $130,000, but they were like 40 grand until like 3 years ago, and long after 355s. And 993 turbos got expensive. That's not why we're here today, though.
No, but we are here to talk about speed. But first, I want to know what you're bringing at Radwood, because I'm bringing the car that I'm not supposed to be talking about yet. The one that I sort of half admitted.
You have definitely admitted like 3 times that you own this car, the BMW 850 CSI.
Right.
It is blue.
You've now driven it.
I have now driven it. But that's for another episode on another day. I don't know. Maybe I'll bring my R129, which is teal. Although we can't bring that car if the Rover's not there, because they're the same color.
Yeah, but I think we do. Well, if we coordinated last year where we had the aerodynamic hatchback, non-hatchback in your case, French versus... That was fully France versus like UK/America. Fuck yeah. This year we should have a theme. Maybe they'll give us the
Luxo barges.
Luxo barges. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think you may have to bring your blue SL.
It hasn't been publicly displayed anywhere yet. So
it has. I mean, on Instagram. Oh. I did post a picture of it together with the Rover, because it was something I hadn't noticed. Is that
we
the same
next
color?
To each other.
Yeah, we pulled in the parking lot. We're like, the fuck is this? They're same color? Shit.
Yeah.
Okay, we are here today to talk about 2 other cars that
have nothing at all to do with any of this,
except that you were talking about cars that do the same 0 to 60, which brings us to numbers, which brings us to quarter-mile numbers, which brings us to
the drag strip.
So if I were to ask you what your preference was on drag, are you talking VHT or are you talking RuPaul?
I've actually never seen RuPaul's Drag Race.
Tracks. So, you've not seen a television since 1977.
Well, I stopped watching television when it was invented. Anyway, so
you're not a
VHT.
Very
I watched
high shit. No.
What does VHT actually stand for?
Oh God, I did the research when we did this video.
It's not something straightforward like very high traction or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. But it was
like a company.
It's a company. It's brand name
3M. Do you know what 3M stands for?
3 midgets?
No. Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing Company.
Oh, that's cool. That's like another one of those things like WD-40 was actually its part number, basically.
Water displacement 40th
attempt. Yeah. When we did that episode, I did look up...
What episode? You haven't introduced it yet.
Oh, okay. So we decided to do the ultimate... Hold on. God damn it. Hold on. VHT, I don't remember what... This is now 2 months ago. I don't remember what VHT stood for, but I don't think it actually stood for like very high temperature or whatever. VHT is a traction compound. It's basically a glue that's applied to drag race tracks that allows you to...
What if you used it on circuits?
That would be an interesting question. If you use it in the corners, would it slow you down with the additional drag of driving over glue?
Or would it speed you up because you had more traction?
Yeah. I feel like we
And
have
what if
an
you coupled
ultimate
it with
lap battle
Aero?
next. We have an ultimate lap battle.
Someone
VHT
surely somewhere
edition.
has to know this.
Stop calling me Shirley. Anyway, it was a brand name. It was a brand name. It was a VHT blah 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 blah. There was a company that started it, and it was called VHT Track Bite initially.
It's a good
and now
brand
it's
name.
PJ1.
I think that there should be some scientific exploration of this topic. Maybe someone like Project Farm, who does a lot of testing of things, can tell us.
Can tell us where exactly it was.
No. Whether it would make your lap times faster if you used it on a circuit.
Oh, fuck it. Let's just put Randy in a bunch of cars and do it. I mean, Can you imagine how pissed the track would be at us if we're like, oh, well, so we went to go clean the track and the tractor that blows off all the dust got stuck. Yeah. So we had to turn around the little blowy jet thing and use it to propel itself out. Yeah, they'd be very pissed off. Anyway, so there had been some discussion, obviously. So in the Dodge SRT lineup, they did 7 last call editions of the Challenger before it went out of production for good, which it now has.
Are they all Hellcat or better? Are they all supercharged?
To be honest with you, I don't remember. I don't think I looked at all of them. Some of them might have
Is there
been
just a Hemi
Scat
one?
Pack. The 392 Scat Pack is actually my favorite. The 392 is my favorite motor of them all because the supercharger whine is so dominant on all the Hellcats and Demons that I just... Also, they have so much power that they're kind of
Unruly.
big and dumb.
Yes.
Yeah. They just can't put it down. And then you're dealing with a transmission that wants a short shift when there's wheels. It's just, they're that much more difficult. Give me a 392. Give me a 392
You can use all of the
Durango.
motor.
Yeah, all the motor. You get to hear all that stupid, I mean, by stupid, like
Glorious
V8 noise. And so Dodge, the last one was the Demon 170, and this was a drag package that came on Mickey Thompson drag radials, and the idea there was it would be the fastest of the bunch. So it's on E85, it's rated 1,025 horsepower, and I believe 945 pound-feet of torque. And Dodge pulled off an 8.91 second quarter-mile run on VHT, so on a prep surface, when they launched the car. And
when they released the car and when they launched it.
Yes, exactly both. When they showed the car to the public for the first time. And that was apparently done in Florida on a track with negative DA conditions. So meaning the weather conditions are such
DA, density altitude.
So basically more favorable conditions than SAE standard weather corrected output would be.
So negative DA, does that mean below sea level?
Effectively, it means effectively below sea level, but DA is a combination of barometric pressure, which is also changed by altitude, and temperature and humidity. So, I think
airplane people definitely know about density
Yes.
altitude. That's why hot and high is super sketchy, because you end up with much less air, which means you have much less lift, which means you need to be going much more faster before you can be flying.
Right. To make the lift, you must go the faster.
Yes.
And fly the lower, or whatever. I don't understand planes. But I do know that we weather correct all of the data that we publish on Ultimate Drag Race Replay. If you guys haven't seen the show, the sort of main premise is that I can stop time. And it's done as a device to allow me to walk back and explain what the hell just happened. Because in the case of these cars, it's over in 9 seconds. Like your sex life. And it
Speak for yourself,
I am.
bucko.
Even Jake laughed on that one. That would assume I had a sex life, when instead I'm sitting here talking to you about fucking DA instead of TNA. Or what are there other like sort of abbreviations that would
everyone
discuss?
has different things that they're into. Maybe DA is that thing for some person somewhere.
Oh, I didn't think about that. Density altitude is where my mind was, because I'm dense and high. I wish,
and high.
We should actually, now that marijuana is fully legal, basically, we should do an episode high.
No, absolutely not.
I mean,
have
you ever been high?
Once when it was, invented, of course. I just become useless. Like the fact that some people...
Okay, vote in the comments. Who wants to see useless Derek?
The fact that some people can drive while high is absolutely mystifying to me. I absolutely could not.
Really?
No.
How fucking high were you? The one time you got high.
Apparently, the DA was very, very, very high altitude.
I'm not a regular pot user. Like
No,
I'm
neither am I.
very, very occasionally. And it typically makes me want to just go to sleep. And also shut up. Like I don't want to talk.
Yeah.
It's difficult to
I'm
talk.
similar to that.
What I want to do is eat a lot. I mean, imagine the size of me if I was a pothead and watch a movie. And then I wind up focusing on like the actor's facial expressions, like micro expressions. And I'm like, they're not happy right now. And I see all the fucking behind the scenes shit. And I start like looking at every individual shot and it just ruins the movie. And then I go,
That sounds miserable.
Except if it's something stupid funny. Like I once got really high and watched, what the fuck was that movie called? It was the spoof of the spoofs of, it was the one where the girl had Tourette's and she was, give me an H, give me a giant cocksuck fucking asshole, whatever. It was just, you don't know this? It wasn't Scary Movie. It was Not Another Teen Movie. And it spoofed Scary Movie and the one with the fucking floating bag and all these other movies that you've probably never seen.
Yes, correct.
And I had never seen any of the base movies. I think I'd seen Scary Movie, but it didn't fucking matter because it was so stupidly funny that I had to stop watching it because I was throwing up continually in my mouth and swallowing it. And that was even funnier. And I had to just pause and let the dust settle. Anyway, but I think we should do a fucked up, like a high, like this episode is brought to you by like Joe's Marijuana Shack episode of the Carmudgeon Show. Anyway, Jake is typing feverishly. He's going to make a graphic for Joe's Marijuana Shack.
He's going to hold us to it also, unfortunately.
Car and Driver did an article in I think 1980 or 1982, where they gradually got higher and higher and higher around an autocross course to find out what it did to. Have you never seen this?
No.
I own the issue. I bought it on eBay years ago.
Don't you own every issue of Car and Driver?
Mostly, yeah.
So you bought it
this
again.
years ago, but I bought it years ago because it was fascinating. They did a study on what pot did to you. And the reason why is many years ago when I was younger and stupider, I got high and drove up in the mountains once. And it was, I shouldn't say that. I went out for a drive in the mountains with my coworkers who were actually my employees. And one of them's like, do you smoke? And I'm like, 2 packs a day, you idiot. You see me smoke all day. And she's like, no, dumb fuck. And she handed me a joint. And I'm like, we're like an hour in the mountains away from home. I was probably 23, 24. And I'm like, fine, I'll have a hit. Well, that fucking hit was like, and I wound up driving home. And I, again, do not condone such behavior. But I swear I was a better driver. Like, I'm sure I was able to objectively be the judge of that. But I often wondered if I would actually be faster in an autocross because of that focus that I can get when I'm watching a movie or something.
So clearly you were not the only one who asked this question.
No, so I found out.
Driver.
I asked that question of somebody and they're like, well, Car and Driver did that. And if you look at the data and read between the lines, that's what happened. Some of them got slower, some of them got faster, but they were very careful to say that. Because obviously at that point it was very illegal. They could have all gone to jail for doing that whole thing in the first place. I think they did this as a reason because in the 70s they had done one with alcohol and like 4 of them wound up in the hospital. Like it was bad. Like they got
from hitting things?
No, progressively drunker and then did all this
impaired,
but then wound up with alcohol poisoning. Like they got sick. So they were like, well, you can't OD on pot. So let's just smoke a lot of weed and get fucked up and do an autocross. And the one thing I remember was the sort of conclusion was, this is a controlled situation, folks. Don't be doing this on the road because you know what's going to happen. You're going to be like, pretty squirrel, and crash into a van full of Christian nuns or something. But if you look at the data and read between the lines, they were like, yes, Chubba got faster, if I remember correctly. Anyway, how the fuck did we get here? What? I'm going to just have some iced tea in.
Okay, so this has been an episode of the Carmudgeon Show.
Am I actually high? DA, yes, that's how it came. So anyway, Dodge made that claim. Lucid comes out with a Sapphire, and we had done one of the Ultimate Drag Race replays with the Lucid Air Sapphire. That is by far the fastest car we'd ever tested. It did a 9
When
point.
does Rimac Nevera become a player in this? I would love to see that.
Do you see what he's doing to me? Look at the look on that Jake's face. Don't bring that up.
Oh, PTSD. Okay.
Okay, for
noted.
the fucking record, now that you're going to make me say this to this audience, I'm very, very sorry to tell you the truth. We had it lined up. We had...
Oh, really?
You didn't know this?
Yeah, was that this episode? Or some other episode?
Yeah, it was Cooter.
It was this episode.
No,
I thought it was some episode ages ago.
It was it was December of last year.
Yes.
Right? It was the day after we did that fucking goddamn Cybertruck episode.
Yes.
We had lined up a Nevera with a Pure Sport, and we were going to on a half a mile track, and we were going to do the world's fastest. That episode was called Beyond the Quarter Mile, because we've seen Nevera go up against other stuff, but no one's seen what happened on a half mile. In a half mile, those fucking cars were going to do 200 and something miles an hour. It was a big thing. It was a huge production. It took us forever to get everything put together, and we got shot down the fucking morning of.
Never mind.
For insurance reasons. Insurance reasons. Very, very, very upsetting. So yes, I think Rimac probably doesn't speak to me. And I mean, they were gracious. No one got decked, even though I genuinely thought I was going to get punched over this whole thing, because several people had flown from fucking Croatia to do this, and they flew cars and fucking techs and please. Anyway, very upset. Breathing. Does anyone have any weed? I need to relax. That was very, very disappointing. So yes, I have not been able to test a Nevera, even though you and I both drove it, and holy fuck, is it fast. The fastest production car of all time, presuming it's considered a production car. I suspect it now is. So the fastest car that we've had on the show was a Lucid Air Sapphire prototype. Prototype was driven by Lucid's test driver, because I don't think it really makes a difference who gets to press the gas pedal, because it's just a button.
Yeah, as we saw in the episode.
And I had that horrible vertigo incident that happened that week. So I was like, put me in a car with a fucking 1,000,000 horsepower? Fuck no. Anyway, so it got a 9.1 at 156 miles an hour. Repeated, the car did amazing. It beat the Chiron, and it beat the Ducati that we had Josh Heron on. That was a super fun episode. But then Dodge comes out with his 8.91 second Demon, and we've been sort of working to get one since. So we finally got our hands on one. But of course, that 8.9 is on a prepped drag surface. So we thought, let's do this.
With more air going in the engine due to
with
the
negative
DA.
DA. But I weather correct our acceleration runs. So technically, I mean, I don't think Dodge did on that one. So the idea here is every episode should be comparable to every other episode. Gas powered cars get some compensation because we're at 2,800 feet of elevation. I don't remember at Willow, but it all gets plugged in, and we thought, okay, on dry pavement, this will be no contest. The
Standard pavement, you mean?
Like on regular asphalt, dry as in like untreated pavement. The Lucid Air Sapphire will just absolutely leave the Demon for dead. But what happens if we then pick up and leave and go to a drag strip and have the guys VHT the fuck out of the surface and go do this for good? We brought in a guy named Tom Bailey, who owns a Demon and who has built and raced some of the fastest street cars around. We talked to him. He was totally game to do it. Super cool guy. Showed up. He's got a lot of experience, knew exactly what settings the car needed and how to get it down the track as quickly as possible. And spoiler alert, if you guys have seen the episode,
have not seen the episode.
I'm sorry. If you have not seen the episode, yes. If I had to describe it in one word, it would be embarrassing. I mean, we just felt terrible for Tom because he watched the Lucid leave. And he was like, what the fuck? Like, I can't compete with that. And we tried all day. And it was on E85 and temps were good. Everything was kind of poised for a good run. And to his credit, he got a 3.7 second 0 to 60, which is the fastest or the quickest 0 to 60 we've ever seen from any Challenger in any magazine sort of testing regime, and an 11.2 at 139, which is fast as fuck for a Challenger, but it's a tenth slower than a Hyundai Ioniq 5N, for example. And we're in a world where EVs that have four-wheel drive and really, 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 really fast traction control just are uncatchable. And of course, there are plenty of
How does it compare to an Urus or a something?
The Anus was quicker. The Anus was 10.
Four-wheel drive.
A four-wheel drive, right. So what you're battling against is far too much power for rear-wheel drive chassis. Considerable amount of weight. I mean, the Challenger is not a lightweight car.
Well, and the weight is not as far back as it could be, so that's also another traction.
It's not a 911, right,
yes.
in that regard. And then you're balancing both traction control and an automatic that kind of wants to short shift when there's wheel spin, and traction control that just isn't. It's
Here to party.
Well, no, it's doing what I want, but it's also an internal combustion engine, and so the amount of it's an internal combustion engine that uses wheel speed sensors that have 50 teeth or something like that. So the resolution of what the computer sees on those rear wheels is 1, and the resolution of what an EV sees is 50,000. And I'm making those numbers up, but the reason why is, imagine you have I don't even know how many teeth are on an ABS ring on a Challenger, but it knows where the wheel is probably 50 times the rotation. Let's say if they're 50 teeth, or 25 times the teeth, 25 times per rotation. An EV that isn't using the ABS wheel speed sensors for traction control, it's using the motor. And so, especially on the rear of the Lucid Air Sapphire, which has 2 motors, so it's not looking at average speed across the 2 rear wheels, it's looking at the actual speed of each rear wheel. And it has something like 10-to-1 gearing, so the motor itself is spinning 10 times faster than the tire is, and the resolution of the motor is in fractions of a degree. So effectively, it knows hundredths probably of a degree of rotation exactly where that tire is, and can start to slow that down, a spinning tire, long before you'd ever be able to perceive it in the real world. And then on top of that, how quickly electric motors respond, could go from full output to 0 and back 1,000 times in a second. 500 to 1,000 times in a second. In reality, you can't do that because of the resonance that it would create would explode the axles and blow shit up.
The motor could do it. The rest of the car could
right,
not.
Exactly. The axle probably would be the weak link. But so you're talking about a resolution in time of traction control interventions that are on more orders of magnitude faster on the EV. And so that poor Challenger just, it created a hell of a time. 11.2 is fast, but it's just 400 feet behind the Lucid at the stop line, and also going 20 miles an hour slower.
And what is a quarter mile? 1396 or something like that? 1320.
1320.
In a 1320 foot race.
Yeah, so it's a third of the way back.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not
400 feet behind.
Yeah, it's not a good show. I mean, it was just we were horrified. Like when we saw that, we're like, oh shit, it's worse than we thought. But Tom fucking nailed it. Absolutely. Hats off to him. Just again and again and again and again and again. Just did everything he could. And the surface at Willow, it's a racetrack. It's it's not meant for that kind of stuff anyway. So I tend to have a hard time getting cars to post the numbers. It's work. So then, of course, we picked up and we went to Famoso Raceway. And so Famoso is an actual NHRA certified sort of actual racetrack. The guys there were super cool. They let us film them and watch them and talk to them and ask a billion questions while they were applying VHT. And then they were heating it and doing sort of all these tricks to really maximize its effectiveness. They also, which was super cool, let me take apart the timing light, the staging beam sort of situation. And so we did a thing in the video about how the staging lights work at a drag strip. And this is important because we all omit rollout in the in all of our 0 to 60 and quarter mile times at the magazines.
Is it 5 foot?
1 foot.
1 foot.
It's 1 foot of rollout. So on a V box, which is done with GPS and or accelerometers or whatever you're using to test cars, you're telling it to omit the first foot of movement and not to start recording until the vehicle's traveled 1 full foot. And that, depending on how fast the car is, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4 of a second, which is significant. Yeah. And that rollout's pulled out of our 0 to 60 numbers, and it's pulled out of the quarter mile numbers. And it's really fucking stupid. But as I point out in the video, a 2x4 is also not 2 inches by 4 inches, right? It's 1.5 by 3.5. Yeah. And it's the fucking standard. And some asshole did this years ago because you could cram more 2x4s onto a shipping container or wherever you wanted to ship it to and screw your customers by charging them same for less. And so that stuck. Same thing with rollout. So it was cool. We filmed the timing beams and just did some graphic stuff. And on the VHT treated surface, the relative advantage of the Lucid dwindled, as you can imagine, because the Dodge needed the help more than the Lucid did. So Lucid lost just 0.2 of a second.
It improved by 0.2 of a second.
It improved by 0.2. So it went from a 9.2 I should say, by the way, this car that we tested was a 10th slower than the prototype, but 2 miles an hour faster. And that's both within the noise. That's not like, the prototype had, prototype was cheater or tune or whatever it is. That's just conditions on the day. Whether it was hot, the tires were grippy, million different things. But it's also within the noise. And I don't think it was actually a full 10th off. We round. So it could just be as little as 500ths. But anyway, it went from a 9.2 to the fastest run that I got was a 9.002. So pulled 0.2 off but then lost 2.5 miles an hour. Instead of 158, got to 155.6.
Why is that?
Less time to accelerate. Simple. Weirdly, when you get a better launch, your trap speed will be lower. And this is one of these things that I don't like about drag racing because my brain explodes.
Wait, say that again. Why is that?
Get a better launch.
Yeah.
And your trap speed will be slower. You got off the line more quickly, but that means less time for your car to accelerate. You would think,
shit.
You would think
okay.
the better launch would give you a higher starting speed, which would thus make you have a higher trap speed. But no.
Yeah, but you need the extra time to be adding miles per hour.
It's so fucking annoying. I don't like that at all, but it's the way it is. So yeah, it lost 2 miles an hour, but also lost, i.e. gained.
Yeah, because in 0.2 of a second, the car would have accelerated.
And also there's more rolling resistance on VHT. Who knows what the fuck else is going on? But
on to the next thing.
So 0.2 of a difference, but the Demon was 1.5 seconds faster.
Jesus,
that is a huge difference. That's like 2 leagues of performance. Plus gained 5 miles an hour. So not only was it a 1.5 seconds less, but gained 5 miles an hour, and that tells us that's VHT really doing its job. But at the end of the day, it was still 0.7 of a second slower, and also was almost a full second slower than Chrysler's claim on the car. And this was really tough. So the way we normally run the Cooter is you're seeing the weather corrected, scientifically obtained, best possible case results. And so there's never any of this. The driver fucked up. Randy fell asleep at the wheel because, he's an old lady. You'll get that joke when you see the episode. We don't make the driver a character in Ultimate Drag Race Replay, right? It's just, this is what the car is capable of doing. But the first run in the Demon was like a 10.4, 10.5 at the track. And we're like, okay, we can't do this. We expected actually the race to be incredibly close. And in fact, we're kind of rooting for the Demon because combustion, petrol heads and whatnot. And so we ran 14, I don't know how many launches we did, but we ran 14 full timed runs and would have kept running.
It's except only 3.5 miles.
Yeah, it's true. Would have kept running, but we were running out of gas and we ran out of light and time. And, we had VHT reapplied a couple times to just make sure that both cars had the best possible launch. And in 14 runs, the best Tom was able to do was a 9.721. And he only had 3 runs, I think, in the 9s. The rest of them, maybe 4, the rest of them were in the 10s. Meanwhile, that fucking Lucid, which I was driving, I'm not a light person. So, if somebody who weighs 100 pounds less than me, like a 120 pound person would have probably been able to get a couple hundredths off. But it did like a 9.002, a 9.005, a 9.006, a 9.008. And then I was like, at this point, I'm nauseous. Like I want to go home. This sucked. Like I had such a headache by the time. It was run 9, I believe it was, is when it finally crossed over the 9.1 mark. And then it was run 13 and 14 were over the 9.2. And these are consecutive runs. I mean, there's no like, let's just do a cool down lap or bang, 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 bang. So that is fucking amazing.
Yep. Consistency and lack of talent needed. Like there's no technique.
I have plenty of lack of talent. Yeah.
I mean, like no specific drag racing talent needed. Yeah. I mean, that's always the magic of drag racing is reaction time and talent at getting the power down.
I would have loved to go to do a couple runs in the Demon to see how close I could have gotten to Tom's time in the same way that I'd love to do a lap, set a lap time like Randy does and see how close I can get. But it's a waste of time editorially because it's meaningless. Yeah. But I don't think if he does this all the time in his car. And he was saying this one just didn't want to hook up, right? It was, there was obviously nothing wrong with the car. The power was all there. But the combination of the surface at Famoso plus the tires plus the weather that day, whatever it was, he was having a bear of a time. Car did a wheelie almost every launch, got, an inch or so off the ground. But man, the difference between a car that's within a couple hundredths every run and one that even with a semi-pro driver had a 0.6 of a second variation I would have had a 6-second variation.
Yeah. That's absolutely wild.
It was pretty nuts. And of course, so I wrote the whole script about, there being two Americas, right? Everyone is so fucking camp internal combustion, camp EV. Mm-hmm. They all hate each other. Everyone's sick of this shit. We're all sick of hearing about how fast EVs are. But I thought we owed it to both of these cars to finally check and see, like, okay, in both types of conditions, under standard scientific weather corrected sort of conditions and the best possible drivers we can get in the car, what's the situation? And
so what's this mean in the real world?
I mean, I've said before on this podcast that my e-Golf, which is my slowest accelerating car other than the Rover, slowest accelerating car is actually my fastest car in traffic. There's the fact that this thing is the fastest car in instrumented testing just means that nothing else would possibly be close other than like a Tesla in the real world. Like this is a level of speed that no internal combustion car is ever going to achieve. And so it's over.
Yeah, I mean, the fundamental difference is that an EV makes its peak power kind of always, and a gasoline car makes its peak power at some number of RPM, which is high up in the rev range, which you only momentarily achieve. Otherwise, it's making some number of powers that's less than that.
When you get to these numbers, it's actually past that. That doesn't even matter.
Really?
Yeah, it's about traction control. Right. And
you're in terms of acceleration, I guess, from a dead stop.
I mean, from 60,
I'm talking about real world also, though.
Even with 60 miles an hour, you floor it in a Plaid or a Lucid, it will spin all four tires, but you don't know it because it's
but if you do that in a gasoline-powered turbocharged car that has 800 horsepower and you're in 7th gear and it has to do 4 gear changes before it gets anywhere near the power peak, that's the real world difference from your e-Golf to some other car.
Sorry, I was still stuck in
drag race
mode. But no, you're right. There's just no contest. And so what I like about this is it's over, it's done, it's proven, it's never going to be beaten. Like those EVs are never going to be beaten in instrumented tests. And now we have this resurgence like the Bugatti Tourbillon where they're not talking about performance. It's like the 0 to 60 times kind of done. They're concentrating on the experience. Mm-hmm. And
which is the thing that old car people have been doing for quite some time because we drive old, slow shit boxes.
Yeah. Slower it is, the longer I get to have my foot on the ground.
Mm-hmm. And listen to
screaming
noises.
Screaming shitbox.
Yes. The soundtrack of screaming shitbox.
I mean, I think
the song of my people.
I think the peak, that is the beat.
Yeah.
I mean, you're foot on the floor, 8,500 RPM upshifts every gear, and it's got an 85 mile an hour limiter. And you tap that limiter and you're like, God damn, I'm going, fella. Subaru just drove by.
Yeah.
Speaking of Subarus.
Good. Another episode in which we shit on Subarus.
No, I'm not going to do that anymore.
Sorry. I could not have you finish that sentence.
No, that I keep getting all this great feedback from that episode that nobody watched. It actually did pretty poorly.
Which one? The signs you're a bad driver?
And we forgot some really good ones. Like we should go through the comments. Like we need to do
things that were left behind.
Things were left behind. And they're like the simplest shit that I forgot about until the next day after we recorded it. Use the fucking merge lane to fucking accelerate. Like these people who accelerate on the freeway and or merge onto the freeway at 31 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And then even worse. So of course what happened was I was in one of the cars, something slow, right? And something not fit, probably the Beat. Come around the on-ramp, so like 270 degree on-ramp. And I would like to come around that thing, ass first, sideways, foot on the floor. So I have some chance of merging onto the highway at 55. Yes. Or I'll be coming, like the engine's still cold, so I'm not going to do that. And I'd like to swiftly make it around the on-ramp, get on the highway, and I merged onto the fucking freeway at 12 miles an hour, only to have this Tesla in front of me just go as soon as they were like merging into traffic. And they merged on it like 90. And I'm sitting there at 12 miles an hour going, you fuck. Like, what am I supposed to do? I almost had to pull over on the shoulder because by the time my emergent lane ended, I would have been at 16.
When you're driving an old Mercedes diesel and some person somewhere interferes with a pass that you've been setting up for 2 miles.
Fuck, it's going to take me 45 more minutes to get around this.
To get back to that speed.
Yeah, to get back to that speed. Yeah. The sort of, we need to do another part 2 of signs you're a bad driver because there are plenty more.
It's been until I drove that 300 SD, it had been a long time since I drove like a really slow car, and I'd forgotten about that whole dynamic of spending miles setting up a pass or something like that.
This is the orange 300 SD that you drove for the Piaccasode?
Exactly.
That's a fast diesel. Like, we need to buy, first of all, we started looking and then forgot again. We need to buy an old Pontiac to blow up. And to do a test on, and we need to buy a 200D or a 240D or just borrow one. We have one friend that's got a 240D 4-speed, I believe. Sold. This was the grandfather's car that sold. Shit.
They have a very short attention span.
Okay, that's annoying. I want to drive a 240D again because
I've never driven one.
You're shitting me.
No, I've only driven the turbo.
The 300D turbos. Yeah. Those are fast. So the 300D turbos were like 16 to 60, 13 if you got a really, really good one. And the 240Ds were in the 22s.
Yes. Yeah.
I put 22s on my car. Oh, wheels? No. 0 to 60 time.
In minutes.
No, yeah. They would do 60, like a 200D would do 62. 63, 64 if you had the windows closed. 58 with the air conditioning on. They were fucking slow.
We didn't get those in the United States. No. We only got the 220D in the 115.
Yes.
And then that was replaced by the big block,
the 240D. And 2.4 is indeed a big 4-cylinder.
Yeah, but it's 65 horsepower.
Was 65 horsepower 57 years ago.
It's a Mercedes-Benz. It's probably still doing that.
Yeah, but they get slower. I feel like the diesels get slower as they lose compression.
Yeah, when they reach 300,000 miles.
Yeah, which is all of them at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about it, a car that's 60 years old, that's how many miles a year? I can't do that math. 15,000 miles a year?
Oh my God.
No, hold on.
Yeah. 1.8 million.
No, it would be like 6,000 miles a year. 6,000 miles a year. Yeah, it's 6,000 miles a year at 60 years old would be 360,000. Yeah. So low mileage early 240Ds are probably driven 2,500 miles a year and still have a fucking
quarter of a million miles. Yes. Amazing. Well, we've talked about the fastest and slowest
car. What is the slowest car you've ever driven? If you haven't driven a 240D.
That's easy. Well, maybe it's not. Isetta.
Oh.
That's very slow.
They did what, 45?
Maybe, okay. Yeah. And Deux Chevaux. Deux Chevaux, there was the 429cc.
Oh.
Not cubic inch.
I was going to say, damn, big block.
No, the big block was 602 cc's.
That's almost Honda Beat size.
And I think they have and the Fiat Cinquecento.
I was going to say.
Fiat Cinquecento also is among the slowest. I don't know. We'd have to drag race them, I guess.
Let's do it.
Maybe it's been done.
Well, we drag raced the Cinquecento against
the Land Rover Defender TDI.
Which one was faster?
The Land Rover.
Which means the Cinquecento then... Was it the line? We have video of this. We did giggle a lot.
We did.
We raced for 2 straight minutes and didn't break a single speed limit, and we were in a school zone.
Yes, that is all more or less true.
3, 2, 1, go! That's kilometers. Oh, look at that smoke. Still going. We're at 50 kilometers, 30 miles an hour. Still going. Oh!
But that Land Rover turned up recently again on Bring a Trailer with an
balls.
LS swap.
Yeah. Somebody had decidedly enough of that bullshit. Yeah. That was so fucking slow.
It was incredibly slow, but not as slow as the original Cinquecento.
Have you driven like a 240G?
No.
A GD?
No.
Did they make a 240 or only a 300?
No, they made a 240.
I can't imagine a 60 horsepower G-Wagon.
Yeah. Absolutely wild.
I mean, I had a 34 horsepower Beetle when I was in high school.
Oh, that's
But I
another
never-
very slow vehicle I've driven is a VW bus. Like a 67, 66 or 67 VW bus. Very, very slow.
Never driven one. I just drove an Acti.
Oh,
That was a
yes.
34 horsepower,
Yeah.
fucking violently slow experience.
Violently
But
slow.
I think it would leave that Cinquecento that we drove.
Yeah, the
for
Cinquecento was
absolute
like
dead.
11 horsepower or something.
Yeah,
like
but it
that.
also weighed 11 pounds.
Yeah, and also the fuel tank was like the size of a watermelon.
That big?
I
That's
mean,
impressive.
like one of those organic,
Yeah.
the little ones,
The
that's
little
like
organic.
smaller than a soccer ball. But yeah, those are definitely the slowest cars I've driven. I mean, those are the kinds of cars that you're like, I would absolutely never in any circumstances drive this on the highway. The Defender, I did drive on the highway. I got it to 60 miles an hour. I left the peninsula. I left San Jose in the car, and by the time I reached San Francisco, it was traveling 60 miles an hour, which is 50
That's
miles.
amazing. It's amazing. you got
There's
that
also that type of car also helps you identify where there are hills that you didn't know existed.
Yeah.
That and bicycling; those are the ways to identify where there are hills.
thing.
that
Even
you
the
didn't-
Beat with 63 horsepower and 1,383 pounds is pretty. It's amazing that it identifies hills acoustically. So that thing is
Yes,
ITBs
throttle
on
position.
it. Well, it's not even really the throttle positions before you even move the throttle. So it's got ITBs and the car is deafening, right? It just is, you are so enveloped with mechanical intake and because it has an exhaust on it, exhaust noises, you hear everything that engine has to say. And I'll be cruising at like 65, 70 miles an hour. And it's such light load that you hear the little itty bitty changes between like a crosswind and a not crosswind. So it's like maintenance throttle / overrun / whatever. You hear it pretty clearly. And you'll get this like a strained sound without having to touch the gas pedal. That's your sign that you had better fucking mat it because you've started to go up a hill you didn't even know was there.
Yes.
It's amazing how you can actually hear that transition.
Yeah, this is the technique of driving slow cars.
Yeah. My question is, I would love to know what the slowest car. 200D was slow, but I think the Cinquecento was probably slower.
Yeah, I
Beetle
think the
was slow.
Isetta might be slower. It's half the number of CCs.
God, that's crazy. So it always reminds me of the Mike episode that we still have to do. He would always like yell at me because when we were like 17, 18 years old, he was like, what is it with you always wanting the big motor? And I always thought he was crazy. He often preferred the little motor, like a 280 SL versus a 450.
That one I see.
Yeah, I see it too. I'd rather have
That, especially because the 450s have that dumb 3-speed automatic.
Well, fair point. But there are sometimes where the smaller motor, C2 Corvette probably is another one where the small motor is sweeter.
They are different experiences, and it depends on what the experience you want. But there's definitely things that the small motor cars are better at doing in the C2 Corvette for sure.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of cars where I would take the smaller motor. Like I would never have an E46 M3, but I would certainly have an
Actually,
E46
I 100%
ZHP.
agree with that one, especially
Finally, I got you. So you'd have a ZHP.
over an M3.
Yeah, a friend just sent a link to a ZHP that he wants me to go look at, and it's in Berkeley by your shop. So I've already volunteered you to go look at it. And he was like, I know it's not an M3. And I'm like, 10 times out of 10 would have a ZHP. And it's
Interesting.
not necessarily because of the speed or the gearing. It's because of the sound of the engine.
Yeah.
I'd much prefer the slower experience where I get to hear more of a better sound.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that one. I'm not a big fan of the E46 M3 experience.
I'm simultaneously shocked and not surprised to hear you say that.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
So yes, anyway, drag racing. So we will continue to do the drag race show, but that was, I think we've now hit until I can get a Nevera again, if Rimac will ever talk to me again.
You might have to get one from an owner.
Well, the owner that we borrowed the last one from is certainly never going to send another one. The car was there.
Yeah.
It was very, very upsetting. Yeah. Interesting. The whole idea of that show is interesting because I'm not a straight line person. I don't care about speed. It's fun as one data point to talk about, but at the end of the day,
I mean, us surgically dissecting it, I think, is probably the most fun part of it.
oh, that's why we do it. I mean, it's the ability to look at the numbers, look at the V-Buck stuff, and say, all right, all of the advantages.
Right. It's just a vehicle for analysis, actually.
Yeah, it's instrumented testing brought to life.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I can show you I can put on a piece of paper, a quarter mile, 9.2 seconds at 158 mph. But to be able to see what that means is different.
And what it looks like relative to.
And I kind of feel like we should always have a benchmark. Like every episode, we should have the official benchmark car for the season of Ultimate Drag Race Replay. And just it's a GTI or it's a Civic Si or Civic Type R. Some sort of benchmark where like, okay, this is, we first established that benchmark. This is what it does. This is what it does against its, competition
Cohort.
or a normal car. Here's a Camry and a GR86 and whatever, and then our benchmark car, and then build on that. Mm-hmm. Because I don't think the world prepares you for what some of these cars look like.
Or feel like.
Yeah, that's true. That I can't do. I mean, I can't.
Yes.
We don't have G-Vision with G-forces yet. But I was in traffic the other day in the Ferrari, and it was warming up, so I wasn't able to do anything crazy. And there was this guy in a black Model X, and I think it was a plaid. I didn't really get that close of a look at it. Who was like aggro weaving through traffic. And the way I see it is go for it. Like, I don't want to be in your way. Clearly you're in a rush. I'm warming up my car. So have at it. I gave him a little bit of room. He got in the lane next to me. And so we're on 19th in San Francisco heading north, which is like a four lane, three or four big, well, north for the park. So three lane that goes into two. And so he winds up in a lane.
Oh, because the left lane is mandatory left turn in the park. No matter.
Heading north right before you get to the Golden Gate Bridge. So at the very north end of the city.
Yes,
so
yes.
Three lanes that goes down into two.
At Lake Street.
He positioned himself to race whatever car was in front of me. And I remember what it was. It was like a Mercury Milan or some shit. And I was a car back. And the light turned green and he took off what I assume was full throttle. And I have seen this episode. I have driven a Sapphire. I've driven all these cars a million times. In the real world, nothing prepares you to see that car take off like that. It was just otherworldly. Yeah. And then, there I am.
Physics violating.
It's just so disorienting. Yeah. Amazing. It's an amazing time to be a speed junkie.
Yeah, but that's not why we're here.
Is it?
It's not why I'm here.
Did you not swap a 3.6 liter into your E320
it's
wagon?
It's not speedy.
It's 270 horsepower. That's Civic Type R
gets
territory.
Out of its own way now.
Also weighs as much as a school bus.
It's 3650.
It's a large school bus. Yeah.
No, that's light by today's standards. Can we now shit on the? This is the part of the episode where we shit on the new M5 for being 5,400 pounds. Great. Now that that's done, thank you for joining us on this episode.
I was talking to somebody from BMW, and I was asking about getting an M5 and an M5 touring, and I'm just like, let's talk about timing on what I can do with this. And this guy was on vacation and was really sweet to have even taken my call. And he was like, let me just make one thing very clear. And I'm like, I'm going to get in trouble already. I didn't even do anything yet, and I'm already in trouble. And he's like, the M5's feelings are quite hurt about all the fat shaming. And I almost put it on mute because I was just about to start laughing going, did you see the one where, have you seen all the memes?
I have, yes. The one where they're like, here it is compared to a Tesla Model X. Here it is compared to, I don't know, all
a black hole. The favorite one was it was a list of the heaviest things in the automotive in the universe, and it was like the mass of Earth, Sun, a black hole, and then the M5 outweighed them all. If anyone works for Autodata, please contact me because I would like to have this series sponsored by Autodata because I just want that. They don't have to pay us any money. Just give me a fucking login because I would like to know what the largest increase in weight ever from one model year to the next has been on a car. And people forget there have been another couple, like C63 AMG gained 800 pounds. Like that thing is heavy also, but I think 1,100 pounds might be the new record. Certainly by percent.
Yeah.
And
there have been some that went down when they switched to aluminum architecture. We like those ones.
What went down when it switched to aluminum architecture? I mean, the last M5 actually lost 17 pounds.
958 versus 957. I think it went down by like 600 or 700 pounds.
Did it really? Was that
I
much?
had a 957 and I wanted commercial plates for it for reasons. And
really?
I had to get a weight certificate for it. And they were really surprised by how heavy it was. It was 5540.
Well, think now an M5 is within 100 pounds of that.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy.
And a Rolls-Royce Phantom.
I mean, the all of those memes on the M5 are hilarious, but the ones that are like, there was one that showed an enormous, I think it was a Sprinter van, like this huge, or a Ford Transit, huge fucking van, M5 had it by like 150 kilos. I'm looking for that, the black hole one, but hopefully I'll find it in time for
an insert.
It's so funny. But yeah, that makes me nervous in the old stuff.
Yeah. Easy to get punted off into the scenery.
Yeah. Just ride like you're on a motorcycle. Anyway, so if you guys are remotely interested in seeing the timing light stuff or the VHT stuff or the Lucid, just fucking embarrassing that poor Dodge. And I have no idea how they got that 8.91 out of that car originally. I mean,
they ran it at 600 feet below sea level.
They dug a new drag strip 1,200 feet below. The one person, I did speak to one person who has sort of been able to get his Challenger in that area, and he made a lot of modifications to it. So I don't know how, like, if conditions vary that much from track to track to track, and DA, I mean, it was hot out, but DA makes that much of a difference. But pretty amazing. Pretty amazing leap in technology. And you drove a Sapphire.
I did, yes.
Did you floor it?
Yes.
You did?
I did.
Yeah.
It was terrifying. The other thing about it is that you feel superhuman in some respects and not in others. And so the performance envelope of the car expands a great deal in the acceleration department, but the cornering and braking envelopes are not expanded by as much. And so you end up not with a circle that just grows in proportion as a circle. You end up with like a very weird shape where the acceleration
dick and balls.
Is really larger, but nothing else is proportionally larger. And so you get really all out of whack in terms of the capability of the thing, because then you like try to turn in at an accordingly high speed. I mean, I didn't do this, but I was like sort of had to mentally consciously prepare myself for the fact that while it was disproportionately performant in the acceleration axis, it was not in the cornering and braking, because physics still applies.
That's the problem when Plaid first came out. Everyone said the car had no brakes, right? So it does stop well. The Plaid stops actually very well. But what we're used to is a acceleration force that is far, far less than the braking force.
Right.
And we as humans get used to acceleration and learn to ignore it, right? Otherwise we would...
we acclimatize.
Right? And so what you're feeling is a relative thing. And we always sort of intuitively know
that braking is
more stronger, and it's not.
Than acceleration. Yeah, there was a great Bentley Arnage red label ad that said 0 to 60 in 5.9, 60 to 0 in 2.6. Surely you have time for a test drive.
That's interesting. Yeah. But the Plaid was, I think, the first car that we've ever seen that actually accelerated to 60 quicker than it stopped from 60. Mm-hmm. And the Sapphire certainly in that department. And that's disorienting. I mean, even for pros, like Randy Popes got out of that Plaid and was like, the fucking thing doesn't stop. And this was when we did that against the M5 M5 CS, which was spectacular. And what you saw, there was a sort of peak, like a 1.3G sudden peak on brake application on the M5 and the CT5V Blackwing that we had there. And that was kind of missing from the Tesla for whatever reason, either initial brake bite or it wasn't able to take full advantage of weight transfer, the braking before the weight had transferred. But then the actual average braking force after that initial momentary peak was almost identical. And he was like, this fucking thing doesn't stop. And it was really wild. Randy, like this is Randy. Randy can tell his second lap is 0.03, like 300ths of a second slower. And he can feel that. He was even fooled initially by this, like, by the accelerative force. Yeah. And that's where you get in trouble in these cars that are so fast.
And end up in people's living rooms or wherever people are putting Teslas now.
And it's one of the reasons I put in the video that the average acceleration from 0 to 100 I think it was a 0 to 100 in the Lucid was double the Challenger. And the curve started to converge, but even at 150 miles an hour, I guess 140 was the fastest 140, whatever it was, 139 was the fastest we saw out of the Challenger. Even at that speed, the Lucid's acceleration was still considerably more. But yeah, the idea that, it's accelerating at twice the rate of a 1,025 horsepower Challenger, like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like it's very disorienting.
Yep.
Fun shit.
Okay. See you at Radwood. If you're in the neighborhood, come by and ask us questions in person. For those of you who will ask where you can consume it, the answer is Radwood. There's no recording planned for this.
San Francisco has a robust network of airports, including San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose. Come visit. It's always such a good show.
Yes.
And I like that this is the home show. Mm-hmm. Totally coincidental. It has nothing to do with us. But Radwood started here, and I still think, although Austin was really good.
I have not been. Actually, the only ones I've ever been to have been in California. Anyway, we'll see you there for... Oh, no, that's not true. We went to the one in Florida. We will see you there.
You didn't go to Philly?
No.
Philly was amazing because of the location. Oh. Trees and California's a little bit barren.
Yes.
Anyway.
We'll see you there. You can't watch or listen online, so you got to come in person.
Yes. Have fun.
All right.
See you there in your Sacco era fucking Mercedes.
Shocking, I know.
Your Shocko
florals.
Era. We're gonna call it your Shocko era Mercedes.
Yeah. All right.
Bye.